Chaz is taller than me. All right, hello. I'm going to say the same thing I said the first time, so it'll be 3 minutes. That'll be quick. Good morning, and thank you for coming today. In case you're in for the first talk, my name is Kevin L. Cooney, and I'm a librarian here in the Exploration and Creativity Department, and I'm here to welcome you to the library's first annual Plant Day at the Library program. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to thank the National Endowment for the Humanities, our Library Foundation, and our behind-the-scenes staff for helping bring this Plant Day program to you. Today is a celebration of all things plants, so whether you're an experienced green thumb or just a young seedling, we hope you'll be able to enjoy all the different workshops and demonstrations that we have throughout Central Library. More information about all of today's programs can be found on one of those handy-dandy Plant Day programs. There's also a QR code on the back that leads you to a survey. If you take the survey, you'll be entered into an opportunity drawing to win a Lomi food composter. So please feel free to give us some feedback and let us know what you liked and didn't like. Mostly what you like, though. We'd also like to take this opportunity to recognize and acknowledge the first people of this land, honor their elders past and present, as well as their descendants who are citizens of these nations. For more information on which territory you may reside on, check out native-land.ca. Just a couple of other housekeeping tips. Again, please silence your electronic devices to not distract our amazing speakers. Take a moment to locate the exit locations over here on the left and in the back. Please no eating or drinking in the auditorium unless it's bottled water. And if you need the bathrooms, they're down the hallway and to your right. And if you parked in the garage today underneath the library, you can get your parking ticket validated at the information desk in the main lobby. Parking will be $1 as long as you parked after 9:30 and leave before 5:30. And you need to show your library card in order to receive the validation. If you don't have a library card, you can get one at the checkout line. And now for our second amazing speaker for today. Meet Chaz Perea, landscape manager for the Los Angeles Dodgers, I'm not sure if any of his other members are here or not, but Chaz will be here for sure. They helped transform Dodger Stadium into the country's first sports arena that is also an accredited botanical garden. They will talk about the process of becoming an accredited botanical garden, as well as practical horticulture tips for putting plants in the ground. And now let's welcome to the stage Chaz. Yay.
Hey. Good afternoon, everybody. First Plant Day.
Yes.
This is really cool. Steve, Kevin, Diane, you all are awesome. So I'm Chaz. I'm the landscape manager at Dodger Stadium. I'm also a professor of horticulture at Mount SAC. So I teach horticulture science, integrated pest management, plant ID, food, land, and politics. I teach a bunch of things. So what I'm going to talk to you today is talk a little bit about the BGCI, the accreditation process, and then I'm going to go over some basics about planting. So I've been teaching for 11 years, something like that, and 7 years full-time, and I just wanted to pull out some of the most common things that we miss when we're planting. Like, what are the basic things you can do to give your plant the best chance of survival? Like Jeanette had mentioned, you just put it in the ground and maybe you say a prayer, right? That's a lot of what happens, okay? And a lot of why our plants don't make it is a big mystery, right? But I can guarantee you that if you hire a plant pathologist, or you say, hey, I'd like to hire someone with a lot of paperwork on their wall to come out and look at my plant and then give me a bill for it, I'm willing to pay for that, it would be like, hey, you just didn't plant it appropriately, or you're not managing your water effectively. So we'll take a look at those two items in detail. Okay, so this is the landscape team. Not here is Adolfo, our newest member of our team, seated right here. All right, an outstanding individual. And his wonderful family. So I had these signs made. These are plant placards that I had made for my guys. And what's on it? You have the last name and the first name, and then a common name, and then a plant family. So I'm a very mobile speaker. I'm sorry, so you'll see me shift around a little bit. So what's the first letter, and why is it capitalized? If anybody remember science class, it's been a little bit. You guys remember kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and then specific epithet. So genus plus specific epithet equals your species name. Now, why is that important? It's like, why do we have these fancy names in italics based on old languages there? Well, when Linnaeus was putting together this binomial nomenclature system, that was what was in vogue at the time, right? So we still hang on to that. But what's the value of it? What is the value? Why? Because we have at least 5,000 California native plant species, and then because of our climate not being quite desert, not being quite Mediterranean, but able to accommodate both those plant palettes, we have 10,000 introduced species in Southern California. How do you keep track of those? It's not going to be with the common name. You want a designated name for those. So the genus and the specific epithet represents an international language to communicate plants with. So if Adolfo and I are talking about agaves, we might say agave or maguey, sabila, and someone else might say century plant, right? So there's 4 common names there just for one plant, and that only describes the genus, not the other 420 plus species that sit within the genus of agave. All right, so that's why you have that up top. And then you have the common name, which is usually in capital letters. Okay, so in this case, Jose would be his first name, Perez is his last name, Chepe is his common name. That's what we call him, okay? And the bottom right is landscape ACA. But if you were a sage, which is something from the Salvia genus, you would be in the Lamiaceae family, the mint family. And the mint family encompasses well-known plants like the mint, lavender, and the sages, all very aromatic. And so you all know the gophers generally don't like the sages that much, or the mints. So we have a tremendous gopher and ground squirrel issue, and they tend to avoid the sages, the lavenders, and stuff, mint. So anything in the Lamiaceae family, very good natural defense against gophers. All right, so this is us. These are the 2 topics that I described to you earlier. How do we become an accredited botanic garden? So who is the Botanic Garden Conservation International? They are the accrediting body for botanic gardens across the world. So they're running through this process with hundreds of gardens across the world in countless countries. You need to apply for accreditation. And what do they want to see when you do that is a whole bunch of stuff. But the question I get most often is, how did you come up with that? I had a lot of things going on. So I have 2 jobs. I've been working 2 jobs. I'm 20 years full-time, basically, while going through school. And I had an art history teacher at the very beginning of my educational process that made us go to the Huntington Library. And it was in the Japanese garden, and had us look through the cutouts in the windows specifically at the landscape. And I started in this industry minimum wage. So does anybody remember when minimum wage was $7.25 an hour? Yeah, that was me. We got quarter raises at that time. $7.25 to $7.50 was a big deal. 50 hours a week like that, plus a night job in school. That's how it was. That's how it got built, right? Many years like that. And then I thought, wow, out of all this person at least appreciates the landscape. Here is this PhD from USC, and they had me looking at plants. And I felt some special connection to that. I didn't make it back to the Huntington Library until 10 years after that. And I never would have gone to a botanic garden if it wasn't for that assignment. So that was a big one. Then something like, 2017, I inherited a plant ID class. We had a plant ID class come through our curriculum at the college that basically covered California natives and drought-tolerant plant material. So we've known for a long time, if you're in the horticulture industry, so if you're in landscape, if you're in nursery, if you're in trees, we've known a long time that the drought, water is a big deal, and planting plants that have low water and fertility requirements are very important for the long-term success of keeping California green and beautiful. We knew that. So somewhere in the early 20-teens, they were pushing through curriculum to teach plant ID specifically for California natives and drought-tolerant material. What does drought-tolerant material mean? All right, typically means you come from an arid climate, A-R-I-D, which means it's a 30-year measurement, and it's if your ground sweats more than it rains, you're in arid climate. And those happen all over the world. So that's Mexico, that's Arizona, that's in places in the Middle East, it's Africa, there's places here in California. So that's generally what we're referring to. Anyways, so that teaches plant ID class. And they're like, hey, Chaz, you're working in the industry, you're planting all these plants. Here's the plant ID class. Here's a list of 12 plants with 14 a pop. And I was like, great, fantastic. I know 1/3 of these plants. Yay, okay. And then I went through a really rough process. It is embarrassing getting up there teaching and knowing 1/3 of the material, okay? So I went through a really rough learning curve to learn, a lot about the California natives and other drought-tolerant material to make that work. Then one year, so I was in order to find all these plants, we were spending a lot of time at the California Botanic Garden with my plant ID classes. So learning a lot, going back to the gardens, and then I was out with some friends, and if you go to the Palace of Versailles and you get there very early in the morning, you gotta line up. It's like you line up 2 hours early, you get one of the first 100 people in, right? And then if you run out to the garden, hurry quick, they have golf carts, okay? They have golf carts. You can take these golf carts to a big garden you didn't know exist. As you ride through this garden, there are soups and adult beverages. Okay. Then you hop back in your golf cart. And as I was driving in my golf cart, I thought, I saw these guys working, estos franceses, they were like some French gardeners, right? And I was like, there's no way these guys can hold a candle to my guys. Like, this is crazy. I'm in like one of the most famous places in the world, and I'm seeing people manage this place who probably could do, a small fraction of what Adolfo does. And I was like, I gotta do something about this. Like, this has to happen. And just something about being in a golf cart, because we have utility carts at work, something clicked. So I went for it. So the idea sat in my head for years, and then it got built, and then I just said, well, let's do this. I applied to the BGCI, and they have these basic requirements. What do they want to know? If you're the Botanic Garden Conservation International, what do you want to know? They want to know your leadership and garden strategy. They need to know you're open to the public. They want to know what your plant collections look like. What does your plant collection look like? It means you're going around your property, imagine the size of the facility that we're at, and then you're counting species and keeping track of them and then kind of putting a general location for them. So count thousands and thousands of species, lay them out in a spreadsheet, and tell them where they're at. That's what they want. Public education. They want to know you're performing some form of public education, which I started doing through tours, which no one attended until Jeanette wrote a very wonderful article about us. And that's been going pretty dang good for us. I also have a Instagram page that's meant to be public education. So I talk about plant material, things that are happening at the stadium. You'll see me and the guys working, planting new things that have died, good and bad. Horticulture, they want to know you have basic fundamental horticulture practices in place. You're performing some form of academic research, and then that can vary greatly because, unbeknownst to some gardens were set up in relationship to teaching universities for the sake of researching and growing new varieties, things like that. So there was happening other places, and it's like, well, how do we do it in our facilities? We got to come up with some unique ways to do that. They want to know your conservation plan, your sustainability plan, who's your expert, and that you are participating in the Botanic Garden Conservation International Network, that you are plugged in, all right? So I applied, and I spent a lot of time on this application, and this is someone with, I had a few pieces of paper on my wall that said I was smart at the time, and they were like, hey, sí, pero no. Okay, like, yeah, that's nice, but no. And then I came back next year, and they're like, oh, sí, pero no, no. And then third time, no. Okay, and then it was, like the fourth or fifth year we applied, they got it, right? So there was a lot that went into it. It's a long process, and then I was just putting this application together myself, trying to work it out. At present, we went through this, and we're accredited. Accreditation lasts for 5 years. We put on these tours that happen, sometimes twice a month, sometimes once a month, but we give them, you'll see me with my team, and then we walk you around the landscape. We talk to you about planting techniques, things that went well for us. This link here, if you look up Major League Baseball, Dodgers, tours, and then Botanic Garden or landscape, it'll pop up for you. But the Dodgers have a massive tour department, in short. So we do tours, they do stadium tours, all types of tours, and I do a garden tour. And we have a bunch of really cool people who do the tours that genuinely care and are quite intelligent and enthusiastic. So any tour you'd have a good time on. I have this educational Instagram page, Chaz Perea. Check out the program at the LA Public Library. Who's that? These wonderful people in the back in the blue shirts? Yes. They came out and did a little docuseries on us. So if you type in LA Made, Chaz, Dodger Stadium, you'll see a little doc on us. So that's what it says at present. Okay. The future. What's happening? Like, where are we going with this? What am I doing? What is this guy? Landscaper, teacher? What are you up to? You get accredited? What do you do with this? We continue to provide more evidence to the BGCI that we're meeting the basic guidelines of what they want. And we also try to be better members of the garden community around us. So fortunately, we're surrounded by we got the Huntington Library, Descanso, Theodore Payne, California Botanic Garden. It's like, I've been to a lot of gardens around the world, and I'm continually impressed by the quality of plant life and the people we have managing them here in Southern California. We are incredibly fortunate in that respect. We are spoiled in plant diversity and people who care and will take niche jobs about plants and dedicate 40 years to it. Like, that's a thing to be admired. So I'm trying to make sure we build connections with them, and then they can help us better. So we're a seedling upstart, right? And our structure is not built the way a typical garden is built, but we do have potential and space to improve, and I'm trying to maximize that. The other thing that we're doing for the future is by being a landscape team, being a part of any sort of operations and maintenance, it's like, what is your goal? Like, who are you? What did you do? What are you working towards? Blowing the leaves off the ground? That's your day? Pull these weeds? That's what you're here for? Right? How long do you think you would be happy with an employment situation like that for? It's not long, right? By being part of the BGCI, we get a set of guidelines that's a greater purpose than all of us that we can all aspire to in the community we can be part of, right? And then we can also build support for ourselves as the landscape department. How frequently do you think the landscape or the grounds crew department has some sort of political sway within an organization? Yeah, just one here, one, right? And so there's a lot that goes into that. That there's a lot of reason behind why we're doing that, and it's I someone who's just minimum wage labor, and if you are driving home at 5:30 and the guy pulls up next to you with the lawnmowers and the line trimmers and the blowers in the back of their truck, and you know they're going to work till sundown, even on the weekends, that was me too, okay? So I was golf course full time, then I had 25 houses that I did, then landscape development stuff I did, all out of the back of my own truck, right? Like, I completely understand what the industry has built up top to bottom. So I worked 2 jobs full-time, went to school full-time for 13 years to get through all of my degrees, okay? Like, so I understand both ends of the spectrum, and I have a pretty good idea of where we're missing our mark here. And I'm just slowly trying to do something with the resources that I have that are available to me to change that. So provide more evidence to the BGCI, and continue to be part of this community, and then keep planting. Why do we need to keep planting? We're trying to increase the species diversity. We're trying to cover the bare soil and trying to beat down the weeds, find things that will compete with weeds long term. That's not easy. If you could weed, how often would you do it? If you weeded every day, it wouldn't be enough. Absolutely in the same situation. One of the tough parts of managing landscape is driving around and seeing weeds constantly invading these desirable little natives that you've fallen in love with. That is absolutely devastating. It can be demoralizing too. We have planter beds that will look flawless, right? Right now, they are covered in veld grass. Brome grass is creeping up wild oat grass, and they will overtake it in another 2 to 3 weeks. And we'll be lucky to catch it before until it gets the height of the plants that are in the bed that are supposed to be seen, that are there for their ultimate purpose, right? That's a tough one. So when we're planting, we're generally planting with the purpose of, earlier you heard Jeanette mention, if you get a Modeliha poppy, Romnea, Coulterii, it might take over the world. It's like, please take over my world, please. You know, every time someone tells me, you know, hey, we also, Modeliha poppies, one of the natives that's more sensitive to water. If you do not have well-drained soil, Modeliha poppy will just die on you. We've killed a lot of Modeliha poppy. We're recording this, so I'm not going to say how many, so I don't want people to put a cost to that, okay? I am, yeah. So we've killed a lot of Modeliha poppy. The ones that we got to work are stunning, but they were in incredibly well-drained soil, right? But when I buy Modeliha poppy, so Fremontia Horticulture in Ontario, we buy natives from Vulcan, and we'll buy 50 of them in. Like, what are you doing with 50 Modeliha poppies? It's like, you know, if you put this thing on a hillside, it'll take over. I'm like, oh, really? Who would have large hillsides you want to take over with natives, right? And so anyway, so I'm usually swiping all of those up. There's usually a couple of people right after me that go, why is there no poppy? And I'm like, well, Chaz was here, right? So there's it. So that's what we're doing here. We're trying to do more tours. We're trying to find more ways to promote plant education, water management, soil management to the public for free. And then plant donations to LADF. So we have the Dodgers Foundation is actually if you ever look up the LA Dodgers Foundation and see how much money goes into ballparks, kids' scholarships, and kids' programs, it's staggering. There's a lot of zeros behind it. And so we're trying to find a way for some of the plants, specifically the agaves that are germinated on our property, to have donate those really drought-tolerant, tough materials that we can sell out for a donation that goes to LADF. And I'm building something out like that. You'll probably see something this year where you'll probably see me and Adolfo out in center field at one game with little agaves that germinated on our property. Que eran nacidos in Dodger Stadium. They were born in Dodger Stadium. All right? So that's where we're at, us as a team. So the big picture. What am I doing overall? Like, where are we going here? I'm trying to change the way we perceive the role of the landscape industry and then labor in general. I'm of the opinion that labor is incredibly undervalued, right? And I'll tell you who's got it right is the laborers union. So for the record, I'm front office management. I'm not union, okay? for the Dodgers, and then I am the union rep for the college. I am our faculty association representative. I'm on both sides of this on a regular basis, and I think both parties can exist happily and have a productive relationship that serves all parties involved. Labor's union, Local 300, Adolfo membership, long time, is an incredible union that's done done incredible work to fight for their union members, for their wage and their pension, which they deserve, okay? So, but most of the industry is not unionized. And I'm not pushing for everybody to get unionized, but I'm pushing for people to respect the role of the people who take care of the land and the building around you all day and have a say within the organization. In order to do that, we need to change the way we perceive ourselves first, the way we present ourselves. So there's some real intentional things you'll see doing if you were to follow us around and look at us and see us at places, some things would start to add up. And then 1 turns to 2, 2 turns to 4, and slowly that builds. This means we need to improve our value proposition. So what does all this means is like, what does it mean to have a landscape department as part of your organization? Pull the weeds. Is that what it means? Or does it mean people who beautify the space? Or does it mean people who take care of the land? Or does it mean people that have a say in the mission statement? Like, what does that mean? Right? It's like, oh, we don't have the same value as marketing? It's like, maybe not financially. I got no problem saying the dollars issue, but what it means to be part of a team. We're supposed to be part of a team, right? And we are. Fortunately, that's exactly what's happening to Dodgers. Ownership, management has been incredibly gracious to us, incredibly respectful. And I know that that other people might not have the same opportunity because of the facility. They might not have that the spotlight put on them for that. So I'm trying to change some things fundamentally about the way we conduct ourselves and present ourselves as an industry. I'm working on it, and that's a slow process. Really, what does that slow process mean? It means like me just running into a wall repetitively. That's generally what it looks like, is trying a lot of things, seeing what works, and keeping the good ones, which is actually a lot like our planting process. I have a pretty high kill rate with natives, okay? So regarding the BGCI process, and what we're doing as a team here, that's one topic. So if you have a question about that, hang on to that, put that in your hat, we'll come back, okay? Now, how far in are we? What time we got? 20 minutes in? 25? Okay, all right. So, planting basics. You get a plant, you bring it home. What do? How big should your hole be? When should you plant it? All that stuff, right? My kill rate's pretty high. So when we plant, generally Adolfo would take, 100 or something comes in. Pete takes something, Adolfo takes 100, Shepherd takes 100, or 10 out of 100. We split up the plants. We put them in 10 different locations, and we see how well they do in each spot. Sometimes we'll lose all the plants in a given spot, right? And then sometimes 2 will make it, and sometimes 5. But in general, when we're planting, we are trying to keep plants that do the best with the least amount of work, as if they would thrive in their native environment. That's generally what we're doing. And if they don't work there, they don't work. And I'm not going to sweat it, and then we're going to try another native after that, and another native after that, and slowly fill the place in. Slowly, and from 1 gallons, all right? Okay, so when do you plant? Mild weather is best. People ask me at the end of the semester, people take hort science, they take ID, or they take integrated pest management, and they finish, and it's the middle of June, they go, Chaz, I got this plant, I want to plant it, and I'm like, ooh, I appreciate your enthusiasm, okay? But, you might want to buy 3 of those because only one of them is going to make it, right? Plant in 3s, okay? Which is something we do. We always try to plant in bunches and bank on 1 to 2 of them really making it. But mild weather is best. Right before it rains, like yesterday, would have been great. This is a great time to plant. And that's the same thing for transplanting. And that's also including when you're moving things in pots, if you have things in your backyard and you're trying to go from small to medium to large. And also, when you're transplanting, if you have a pot that's 6 inches, try to put it in something that's 8, not something that's 12 after that. 6 to 8 to 10 to 12. The way your plant will mature is better in the long run. If you don't have that option, that's fine, but try to transplant in mild weather. That's whether you're digging bare root, that's whether you're digging full pine trees out of the ground that are 60 years in, palm trees, stuff in your pots, or any other plant you get. Mild weather's best. Can you make it when it's really cold out or when it's really hot out? Yeah, you can. It's just an increased probability that you'll have failure at the end of the day. It's an increased probability you'll have failure. I get this all the time is you call someone out, you're like, hey, call someone out with a lot of paperwork, a certified arborist, all this other stuff, and then have them look at my tree, and it's like, I can't tell you whether it's going to make it or not. All I can tell you is under these conditions, you have an increased probability the tree will fail. That's what it is. So and that's the same thing with your small plants as well. So mild weather's best. Now, when you dig a hole, how big should your hole be? Okay, it should be generally twice the width and the same height. Generally, twice the width as the plant. Pull the plant down. About twice the width. Same depth, okay? Same depth. This is tricky. People, in the next part is even trickier. This should sit a tad higher than the ground level, okay? The basal flare of your plant should sit a tad higher than ground level. Typically, when you buy a plant from a nursery, it's a peat perlite mix, it's a mulch, peat, something else mix. But what is high in organic matter content? All organic matter content breaks down. It goes from big to smaller, eventually back to nutrients and gassing back off. So what is organic matter? Just for reference, organic matter is anything that was once alive is now dead. Okay, so this would be insects, leaf litter, rodents that may have died in the soil later. They're all part of the organic matter cycle. Things that are breaking it down, lumbricas, your earthworms, dicherias, the little, the dermapterans, okay, the earwigs, centipedes, millipedes, and then fungi and bacteria. Those are all good things in the soil, breaking down organic matter content from small to smaller pieces that eventually turn into nutrient release into the soil. So that shrinks. That shrinks over time. And the plant that you planted, if you planted at this height, it's eventually going to look something like that. Okay, it's going to settle. And then anytime this basal root flare is exposed to a lot of water regularly, that basal root flare is kind of like the palms, face, underarms, and other sensitive areas in the sense that it absorbs things through it quicker. All right, that would include pathogens and other things in the soil that would like to feed through the vascular system of your plant, okay? And now, unbeknownst to you, is usually you have a bark on the outside, phloem, P-H-L-O-E-M, phloem immediately underneath it, vascular cambium, and then xylem. But phloem is where a lot of sugars and hormones go through, and they're right underneath the bark. So there's a very tasty part of the plant that sits close to the exposure that's protected by the bark. You want to be very careful with this space here. So what do you need? You need very scientific tools to figure out if you are planting at this height. You see the shovel we have laid across the hole? You like that? That's it. That's all you need. Lay your shovel down flat. Is the basal root flare a few inches higher than the level of the soil? That's it. All right, now, what else is happening is this was a, okay, I don't want to disparage this plant too much or the way this plant was grown, but this tree was in a 24-inch box. And this hole is probably a little larger than it should be because they were in 15 gallons and they were put it into a 24-inch box and sold to me as a 24, probably when they should have spent 3 to 4 months in there to accumulate the appropriate amount of root mass. So when we snap off the cables from the 24-inch box, they fall to the side, the dirt went, okay? And so what we had was a 15-gallon plus 2 weeks time, right? And so paying for a 24-inch. So anyway, so that's why the hole is that large. And now, does that soil look loose or does it look like compacted or in between? What's that look like? What's this look like here? Can you tell that's been pressed down a little bit? Can you tell it's been flattened? Yeah. Is the soil wet or dry? It's dry, yeah. When you backfill your holes, use the native soil, add it back in a few inches at a time, and press it down, not while it's wet. Okay, putting weight on top of soil while it's wet decreases the pore size in between there, and that slows the drainage down. So you don't want loose. You don't want to just loosely shovel it in, all right? You want to set it back in, pack it in, walk around. You shuffle around like this, all the way around, okay? Work you all the way around a couple times, and then fill another 4 to 6 inches, and then do the same thing, okay? If it's not big enough to walk in, press, do something, all right? Get 1 foot in there, work your way around, slowly fill it back up. All right, now, after that, so these are the basics I just said. This is backfill with soil dug from the hole. Studies show that using organic matter, fertilizer, and other amendments in the backfill mix does not provide additional benefits. So what they're saying is, it's fun, it's a fun idea to throw lots of cool things in there, in that extra space. Go to home, let's say your soil is rocky or dry. Generally, when it's lighter in color, it's lacking organic matter. It doesn't have a lot of organic matter. And then you're like, well, I'm going to buy this beautiful bag of rich-smelling soil for $7 from Home Depot, and then I'm going to put this in. Not the best idea. So what you've done is added a coarse-textured soil adjacent to a medium or fine-textured soil. Water moves quickly through coarse-textured soil, hits the fine texture, and then stops. Okay, and then all the roots that sit within that zone die off. Roots need oxygen. They're generally doing the opposite of leaves. Leaves are taking in CO2, kicking out oxygen. Roots are taking in, leaves are taking in CO2, kicking out oxygen. Roots are doing the opposite. They need oxygen in there. They need a balance of it. So use a native soil, pack it in, but not tightly, not wet. Using a mulch spread over the top of soil does provide some benefits. That doesn't mean up to the crown, okay? That means around the edge after you've made a little basin. Build a little basin about the diameter of the root ball. You can remove this after the first growing season. So what does that look like? It's also a very scientific process. You have this shovel, you have this dirt, you're gonna work it around. So you can see, can you tell this is raised just a little bit? Yeah? You can tell it's raised. You can see this berm, slowly forming. Look at that. Oh, I had this, right? Little berms all the way down. Fill it up. Should you fill it up once, twice, 3 times? Depends. Fill them all up, watch it drain down, fill them all up, watch it drain down, fill it up again. When the movement slows significantly, that's good. Chill. That's it. All right? Now, what do you do after that? Water, water, water. So we added, so to this in particular, we added drip irrigation, right? So there's drip irrigation that's running around there. The tube that's going to run underground to the next tree doesn't have any holes in it. It's just connected, right? And all the way down, you can see it. So they filled these up, filled it up, filled it up, filled it up, filled it up. How do you know when it's enough water? This is probably the most frequent question I get on the garden tour. What's interesting is I get this question on the garden tour very consistently. I almost never get it when I'm teaching. You know, and I spend many more hours lecturing and teaching in lab than I do doing garden tours. But they ask, how much water? How do I know when to water, when to stop watering? All right, so what happens when you put water in the soil? It rains heavy. Water fills up all the pore space in the soils. We call that, saturation point. There's no oxygen in the soil at that point, or there's very little. Gravitational forces does its thing, water drains off. Field capacity. Field capacity is the happy medium we like to be at all the time. If we could live like this all the time, we would. Soils that are like this all the time are generally hydroponic systems that are peat and perlite or coco coir, okay, where they have the right mix of macropores and micropores to hold on to water, but let a lot of it drain off at the same time. All right, so, but that doesn't happen in the ground, all right? It doesn't happen with the mixed texture of soils with different layers of organic matter added onto the top. It's very tricky. And then you get to permanent wilting point. Notice, there are grades in between all of these, right? But these are, like, if you could just outline what happens, this is the 3 stages. Saturation, field capacity, permanent wilting point. At permanent wilting point, can you still see some blue around the edges of this? There's some blue, so these are supposed to represent the soil particles. Blue is obviously representing the water. You notice some pore space with oxygen and some with water. Plants are only taking up cohesive water, which means water attached to water. So it could pull water out of here, this little pool, this little pool, this little pool. It can't pull the water that's attached to the soil particle here. You notice that all adhesive water is all the stuff stuck to the soil. Plants can't pull that off, okay? Plant roots aren't that good at pulling water out, all right? If you went out into the rain and it's raining and you stuck your tongue out, and just hope that it fell down in your tongue, that's a lot of what's going on. And then if the more water you get, the longer your tongue would get and it would follow it, okay? But it can't actively grow in the direction of something without the water being there presently. So this is where we like to be. This is a better close-up illustration of kind of this here, but there are many representations of this, but this root will thrive around the oxygen-water combination. All right. How do you tell where that's at? There's a lot of ways to tell where this is at. There's the soil probes. They have small probes. They have these little $10, $11, $15, like soil moisture meters you can buy on Amazon. You stick them in the soil. When you stick them in the soil, even these little 6-inch probes, when you put them in the soil, let's say this is the probe, it goes in 1 inch. That might say low. Go 2.5, that's medium. Get it all the way in, it'll say high. So you'll have a range of how wet your soil is within the top 4 inches, such as that what you're seeing on the top is never what's happening in the root zone, where it's what's really important, okay? Everything you're seeing on top is the expression of what's happening in the roots, which you never get to make eye contact with. You can never look them in the eye and see what the problem is, right? All right, but this is your best bet at seeing how they work. So this is Soil Probe from Amazon. Notice that the edge, it's straight, it's not tapered. All right, this will plunge into the soil, but pulling out the core will not be as effective. You'll get less of a core. This is a nicer soil probe, sometimes referred to as a soil profiler. You can get at Gempler's irrigation stores. This is $20 to $50, $70, Amazon. This, okay, if you're dedicated, if you know this is for you, if you're ready to make a commitment, like a legally binding agreement, this is what you get. You're getting married here. This is part of your life. This is who you are now. It's never just you. It's you plus your soil profiler. That's how you live your life, okay? This is serious. So you get this soil profiler, and you notice that it's not small. That's because you need to get leverage on top of it. You need to be able to put weight on top of it. And this is tapered, and you can even replace this little tip. The tips you can screw on and off because abrasion of the soil over time will dull the tip. And you have a 12 to 18-inch soil profile that you pull out. You'll notice that when you push it in the soil, you can pull it out and see and grab the soil and really see what's going on, all right? This is a soil auger. This is my job full-time. It's what I do. So if you needed to get around tree roots, other things that are a mess, you would use a soil auger. And this is a big cylinder, about 12 inches with very sharp blades on top, all right? And you would twist, push, and it'll break through roots and other stuff that's in the soil, and you pull up this really large section of soil, and you can tell a lot about what's going on. A lot of what you would call a plant pathologist or a plant consultant or horticulture consultant out, and you're paying them $150 an hour to come look at it, it's usually around trees. And it's like, well, why is it around trees? It's like, well, because trees are very valuable to people, and like people really don't start calling for help until a big tree in their front yard is at risk, right? And it's like, and why is that a big deal? Well, first of all, they know it's going to cost several thousand to remove it, and it was probably someone they knew who planted it 50 to 70 years ago, right? So they get emotional about it, and they're finally willing to spend some bucks, usually when it's too late. So if anyone plans on making a call, just get ready for bad news, okay? All right. Bad news plus the bill, it's not an easy business, man. Okay, all right, so what happens? You get this soil probe, you get it in the ground. This is the same planter, same soil probe, same time. Take a look at the landscape in the back. We have some stuff that's living, right? Then we have this bare spot, living, bare spot, bare spot. What's going on there? It's like this is all planted. This was an African daisy when it got planted, which is a trailing ground cover, spreads pretty aggressively, easy to grow. This is a hybrid. They call this a blue flame. It's not blue. Don't buy that one. There's a lot of blue mentioned in the plant world. They're never really truly blue. This is especially not. Shouldn't be named that. It's an attenuata mix. Anyways, why were these plants dying off? This was newly installed. New irrigation system, the whole shebang. This soil probe here, see this really dark stuff? This is dark. This is black. I don't know if that comes off to you with the way you can see the color from where you're at, but it's dark. It's black. It stinks. When you pull it up, huele a huevo. It smells like eggs, right? And the egg, that's a sulfur smell, sulfur oxides in the soil. If you have water that's been anaerobic without oxygen for too long, it stinks. It builds that smell up. And you know what I mean, like, ooh, whoa, that's pungent, right? Now, this soil probe here came from that section where everything's happy. Look at the difference, right? So you can see it's wet. This is wet, 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 wet. And then 12 inches below, look, there's a dry spot and then another wet spot. So we have soil layering going on there. Like these were areas that sat as a parking lot for a long time. You bulldoze them over, you scrape out, you build all the concrete, lay everything in, the ramps, footings, the whole shebang, and then you dump your soil back in on top. And then, when you dig deep enough of any soil, any tree issue, after you get 12 to 18 inches in the ground, like you'll find all types of things. Like, why is there like a 4-inch chunk of asphalt here? Like, what is this? And like, is this a boot? This is someone's boot. Like, what's going on down here? What happened in here? And so there's soil layering is what they would call this. But the happy plants belong to this soil probe. The plants that are dead, no longer there, now organic matter, dead, right? Are with the mulch, nothing there. But that's what it should look like, okay? You should look like this. Now, when you pull this out, you can pull this out and squeeze it. If you squeeze the soil in your hands, water should not be running out, all right? But it should form a clump that takes the shape of your fingers in the mold. One firm squeeze, let it go, take a look. When you plant, come back, probe your soil, water in the morning, early a.m., come back at noon, feel it. Come back the following day, feel it. Your plant will need less water over time, but you need to feel your soil in order to really understand how much water it needs. It's a feel. You'll feel it and you'll smell it. All right? So that's really what it boils down to. There's no such thing as a green thumb. It's just people who manage your soil and people who don't. That's what it is. It's do you probe your soil? All that. That's it. Okay? All right. So I'll take some questions here. If anybody has questions, there's a mic. Could ask myself some questions, couldn't I, technically holding this, huh?
All right, anyway. Anyone got questions? All right, I see one down here.
Also, Jeanette is much more of an expert than she purports herself to be. Okay, so you guys know.
So I'm really fascinated. You dig this hole, but you don't put any water in the hole. All my teaching from my elders was when you are getting ready to plant something, you dig the hole, you put water in the hole, you let the water run down, and then you put the plant in so there's water in the soil. So tell me about your
We rarely do that, usually because wherever we're planting, there's existing moisture. That spot there had been opened, like that soil had been, we removed asphalt and exposed and had been rained on. And then usually when we have an empty hole and we're dumping water in it, it's to identify the infiltration rate. We're trying to figure out how many inches of water, how long will it take to get 12 inches of water down this hole. All right, and that'll tell you a whole lot about your soil texture. In my case, before we planted, we went down this very long space, which would be bigger than the surface area of this room, and we went with a big soil probe, and I took a probe where red sweater's at, I took a probe where blue polo's at, blue sweatshirt here, brown pants here, Kevin over here, and then something right here. I took all those in a bag, and we mixed them up. Made a homogeneous sample out of it. Out of a gallon bag, you keep the bottom 4 inches. We send this into the soil lab. Soil lab analyzes it for soil texture rate, nutrients, all that other fun stuff, exactly what needs to be in it. It's about $200. It is the cheapest form of insurance you can get to make a successful landscape. If you do a new landscape in your home, your irrigation system is going to cost you $2,000 minimum, right? And then if you want to plant it and build some pavers, concrete, anything, it's like you're in for 10 G's really quick, right? And a $200 soil test will tell you what you need long-term for success in your soil. So we did all that, and we knew generally what the infiltration rate was. We knew what we could expect when we put water into the soil. Pre-wetting the soil is encouraged, not always necessary. But either way, you do want to be intimate with your soil before you plant. It's a great question.
No? Oh,
Nope.
okay. Oh, one more.
Plant twice as wide, same depth. Twice as wide, same depth.
Huevos son malos.
¿Cómo?
Huevos son malos. So if you said when it smells like sulfur,
Huele huevos.
it
Smells like eggs. Yeah.
is that's a bad thing.
Bad thing. Yeah, if your soil, si huele a huevos or si huele a pedos, right? They're both the same origin. It's a sulfur-based smell, right? Gas, human gas from a pipe, anaerobic soil, same smell. So it's sulfur that you're smelling. Yeah. So if you ever do chemistry, you do OChem, and like you do general chem, then OChem, all your sulfur products, you go, oh, who did what here, right? That's it. It's a very distinct smell. Yeah. Good question. Good? Yeah. Hey, thank you, everybody. Think about it. Just a minute.
All right, thanks, everybody. Please check out the other amazing workshops, and if you like today's program, please consider taking the survey. Thank you so much.